Hi, and welcome back to another video in the TNL Tips video series, which focuses on quick tips to help you be more effective as an instructor teaching inside of Canvas or teaching with any of our DE modalities that we have available to us. In fact, today's video, we're going to jump outside of Canvas and talk about everything else. And by everything else, I mean things you might use beyond the primary tools that you have available to you, which would be Canvas and Zoom. Those are the two tools that most of us use when we're teaching online classes. So we'll talk about everything from Labster to Proctorio. We'll discuss apps and different little things you can use, quiz programs, even something like a Jamboard in your online class. And the value of these tools is really they allow you to go beyond what's available inside of Canvas and using Zoom. So let's jump online and talk about everything else as it applies here to your online class. All right, so as we talk about everything else in your class, quite obviously this is going to vary with faculty member to faculty member, with the discipline that you teach in, whether you're teaching a science or a lab class in the arts or a social science or English class. So it's kind of really hard to cover everything in terms of this video, but we'll make our best effort here just to suggest some ideas about what other things you might use. And I'm really speaking about things in addition to our main two tools that we use in our DE classes. That would be Canvas, which is our LMS or learning management system, and that would also be Zoom, which is our way of delivering live lecture and video when we want to participate in real time. So beyond that, you have some other options available to you. And actually, one of these is inside of Canvas. So when you go to Canvas under your settings menu, you'll see that there are apps available. Some of these apps come up commonly if they're things like Canvas Studio that you're using to create video, or we have some other new tools out there in the works that we're talking about using, including tools that allow us to create really complex like multimedia animations and video quizzes and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff inside of Canvas that you can use depending on your needs. Some of you might need to use the 3M Media Solutions for your video hosting, but I would recommend that Canvas Studio is actually easier to use. If you're ever stuck and you have a question about what should I use as far as apps inside of Canvas, I can give you some advice because I've probably worked very closely with most, if not all of those apps to give you some sense of what you might use. Now, another one that I think a lot of you are using, two of these actually, would be Proctorio. I have additional training videos on Proctorio, and Proctorio is a way to proctor your exams. We have that set up and available for you to use, so if you have any questions, reach out or watch one of my tutorial videos. And Proctorio just allows you, like if you're teaching math, to have a virtual proctoring such that students cannot cheat during the taking of a quiz or an exam, and it's pretty sophisticated how it works. The second is Labster. Labster is an opportunity to have virtual labs on your computer with your students such that you can simulate working in a chemistry lab or doing something in anatomy and physiology or botany. So Labster is another great tool, and I know they're constantly adding labs since I've made that video. But if you're curious, watch my video on Labster to learn a little more about that. There's also media, as I mentioned, so if you're working inside of Canvas, you can take advantage of all the external media that you find, whether it's on YouTube or another site. Very easy to link to media inside of your class, and if you have any questions about that, reach out to me and I'd be happy to help you out on that. In addition to that, we can call other apps out there very valuable in terms of being able to give you tools to use with your students on a case-by-case basis in terms of what you're teaching in your discipline and also your teaching style. I know the language faculty use Marco Polo app, which is really easy to use and free to download on your phone, and it allows students to have conversations, I believe video conversations and audio that then can kind of chain together, and thus it's a great way to practice on a particular app your language skills to make sure that you're saying the verbs correctly and all that kind of good stuff. There are also additional apps that you might be able to use, and again it just varies from discipline to discipline. I know Solange in teaching digital media arts often is asking and saying, can we use certain apps that maybe require a short subscription fee by students. And so for questions like that, reach out. We can maybe crowdsource some ideas. There's actually a lot available now in terms of free apps. So for example, if you said, I want to use Photoshop in a class, But if you don't want students to have to pay for the Adobe suite to use Photoshop, you can actually look online for an app called GIMP, which is an open source version of Photoshop that is 100% free to use. So again, reach out to me. I've seen a lot of these apps and I can give you some advice on some open source options, particularly in video, music production, some aspects of graphic design, though I tend to focus more on video and audio production. So reach out and there could be some great solutions for you. Otherwise, if you're thinking of an idea for your class, just do a Google search for an app or even a web page that is interactive that maybe allows you to accomplish what you're trying to do in your discipline in a virtual sense. And then lastly, we have on-camera demos. So I know the art department does a lot of this. Brian does a lot where he has a second camera set up so that he can focus on sculpture or some aspect of graphic design, three-dimensional design in his class, and then the students can take advantage of that. If you're interested in doing any on-camera demos, second cameras, quite a few videos on this, and you can also reach out and I could give you some advice on how to approach some of those possibilities with technology. There's also, of course, live streaming with OBS or Twitch, and I've also done some demos on OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. So a lot of possibilities out there in terms of working with everything else in your class. If you have questions, please reach out because, again, the sky is really the limit in terms of what you can use and adapt in your class. So again, consider using these in your class as they fall under this category of everything else besides Canvas and Zoom. That's it today here, focused on everything else that you might use besides Zoom and Canvas in your online class. As usual, if you have questions about anything I've talked about in this video, reach out and I'll be happy to set up a Zoom time with you to discuss. I'll be back with additional videos in this series shortly.